Last time we talked about the view of slavery in this country. I just printed out what Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain's biography was. Very interesting guy. And you look at his picture. Remember what he looked like in the movie with Jeff Daniels playing him? TNT made the movie, and they went to great lengths to find people that would fit the actual picture of whoever it was they were playing. And at the end of the movie, they would put the picture up, and then they would put the picture of the actor next to it.
Usually they don't match.
Well, not in this. Oh, in this case, they all did.
Yeah, not usually.
The one that they did the best job on was Robert E. Lee, and that was Martin Sheen. But it was crazy. I mean, when you saw Tom Berenger as James Longstreet, you wondered, where the heck did Tom Berenger go? I mean, he had the long beard and everything. So they went to great lengths to find people that actually looked like the folks that they had. So it turns out that this guy was very much against slavery from the very beginning. He obviously lived in an area that was culturally diverse if you read the whole thing, because he taught himself Greek. And you can't teach yourself Greek unless there's people around that speak it. So he ended up at Bowdoin College, and for a couple of years his father was a big military guy, but his mother wanted him to be a minister. So he went to youth military camp for a year or two, and then went to seminary, so he pleased both parents. But anyway, the interesting thing about him is in the same regiment. When we saw the film clip, the guy, with the Thomas Howell, that was his brother. He had a third brother that was in the medical corps that was in the same unit. So 3 of the 5 brothers were in the same unit. And you say, well, what's that got to do with anything? Anybody remember what happened to the Sullivans?
Yeah. But that's not really true, though. And his 2 brothers were in Vietnam at the same time.
So
they're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, well, they're not supposed to put you on the same ship.
They weren't on in the same location, but they were over there at the same time.
There's something about academy surviving person.
Yeah, well, my father would have
Some of us all died.
Yeah, but my father would have been the surviving son, but guess what? He was in Europe, just like the rest of them. Anyway, that I figured you'd want to see that, and also that charge I showed you is still studied at West Point, because the bayonet charge had been given up years ago as being inefficient, but the fact that he was able to assess that he was on a hill and coming down at a high speed made that whole thing work. So anyway, we're going to start with that. Here's the layout for today. By the way, I had my news channels on, just trying to figure out if we're in
a war again.
Yeah, if we're in another Cuban Missile Crisis there or not.
He already did it.
And so it's
Missile crisis is that they say this morning that threats to churches and all kinds of things here in the U.S. because of what.
So I'm cognizant of that for this church. The guys out in front are very, very concerned about stuff like that. Anyway, let's get started. Let's begin with prayer. Lord God, we thank you for the opportunity to be here at this time. We thank you for the chance to hear and study your word and apply your word in our daily lives. Help us to understand what you teach us today. Amen. Now, remember, when we last left our group of travelers, remember there were 600,000 of them, supposedly. They're all camped at the bottom of Mount Sinai. 600,000 people, and Moses is leading this entire group. Stop and think. 600,000 people is 1.5 times the population of Cleveland. That's how many people there are. And he's trying to keep them in line and everything else. And so remember, God is talking to him. Now, who got to climb Mount Sinai to talk to God?
Moses.
Yeah, Moses and whoever he was told to bring with him. And then in each of those cases, he said, you wait here, I'm going to go up and talk. So Moses was the only one talking. And you say, well, what's that got to do with anything? Well, we read so far all of these rules and regulations to the nth degree. And Moses didn't have anybody doing steno or anything. He's memorizing all of this stuff. So now we're going to see how things changed a little bit. So we're going to turn to chapter 24, which is, trying to figure out what page it's on.
84.
84? Okay. All right. So it's entitled The Covenant Confirmed. What's a covenant?
Isn't it an agreement or something?
Yeah, it's an agreement between the two of us. If you do this, then I will do that, or not do that, or whatever it might turn out to be. So now this covenant is being established between Moses and, God and Moses' people. So would somebody like to read the first 11 verses of chapter 24?
Then he said to Moses, come up to the Lord, you and Aaron, Nadab and 70 of the elders of Israel. You are to worship at a distance. The Moses alone is to approach the Lord. The others must not come near, and the people may not come up with you. When Moses went and told the people all the Lord's words and laws, they responded with one voice, everything the Lord has said we will do. Moses then wrote down everything the Lord had said.
Stop there for a minute. Remember what they just said. Everything the Lord said we will do, right? Let's see what happens in a couple of chapters. Go ahead.
He got up early the next morning and built an altar at the foot of the mountain and set up 12 stone pillars representing the 12 tribes of Israel. Then he sent young Israelite men, and they offered burnt offerings and sacrificed young bulls as fellowship offerings to the Lord. Moses took half of the blood and put it in bowls, and the other half he sprinkled on the altar. Then he took the book of the covenant and read it to the people. They responded, we will do everything the Lord has said. We will obey. Moses then took the blood, sprinkled it on the people, and said, this is the blood of the covenant that the Lord has made with you in accordance with all these words. Moses and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and the 70 elders of Israel went up and saw the God of Israel. Under his feet was something like a pavement made of sapphire, clear as the sky itself. But God did not raise his hand against these leaders of the Israelites. They saw God, and they ate and drank.
Okay. Remember up to now, if you saw God, what was supposed to happen to you? You died. Well, these 70 got to see God. And I don't know what the pavement made of sapphire is supposed to mean, to be honest with you. But it must have meant something in that day, because obviously the writer chose to mention it. Notice all verse 11. But God did not raise his hand against these leaders of the Israelites. They saw God and ate and drank. So, God has said, okay folks, we've done what I've asked so far. Let's take it a step further. So now Moses is going up by himself. And that starts in verse 12. So would somebody like to read verses 12 to 18?
Yeah. The Lord said to Moses, come up to me on the mountain and stay here, and I will give you the tablets of stone with the law and commands I have written for your instruction. Then Moses set out with Joshua his aide, and Moses went up on the mountain of God. He said to the elders, "Wait here for us until we come back to you. Aaron and Hur, as I was saying, are with you, and anyone involved in a dispute can go to them." When Moses went up on the mountain, the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord settled on Mount Sinai. For 6 days the cloud covered the mountain, and on the seventh day the Lord called to Moses from within the cloud. To the Israelites, the glory of the Lord looked like consuming fire on top of the mountain. And Moses entered the cloud as he went up on the mountain, and he stayed on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights.
Okay. You know, they have discovered a flower, it's something or other dictum, that actually sets itself on fire but doesn't burn.
On that mountain.
I don't know where, they just know it exists. So now they're trying to say, well, maybe that's what all this was. You know, I have no idea whether that was what was actually there. But apparently this flower emits some sort of a gas, and on a hot day it ignites. But it doesn't hurt the plant. It's the only plant in the world that does that. So they're saying, well, maybe there was a bunch of plants in those days that did the same thing. So also the cloud might have been caused, they say, by lightning strikes, because that would certainly make a lot of smoke. But somewhere along the line, Moses has disappeared into this cloud. Notice it says 40 days and 40 nights. What's that the code word for?
I don't know what the code word, but that's what Lent is too, 40 days.
Right. If that code word means a long time.
Oh, okay.
40 days and 40. The number 40 was very significant.
It's a long time.
Yeah. So that means a long time. And whether it was exactly 40 days and 40 nights or not sure, but that's what they wrote, so we're assuming that to be correct. So whether Moses chose 40 days and 40 nights because that's what everybody else had done, or whether it actually was willed by God or whatever, no one knows. But he was up there a long time. Stop and think, 40 days is over a month. And he's got no food, no water, or anything. He's up on top of this mountain. And we'll see in a little bit how that changes the attitude of the Israelites. Now we're going to actually see the instructions. You see, if you recall, does anybody see the first Indiana Jones movie?
Mm-hmm.
You know what the Ark of the Covenant looks like, right? Do you ever wonder where they got what it looks like from?
Over here.
Right here. And we're going to see exactly what it is. So first of all, I would like, we're going to, in the first 8 verses of chapter 25, we're going to see what they call the sacred tent. If you recall, the people of Israel wandered for years, and there was this sacred tent that went with them. Well, now God is explaining, you will have a sacred tent, and this is what you're going to put in it. So would somebody like to read 25 verses 1 to 9?
Got it. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites to bring me an offering. You are to receive the offering for me from each man whose heart promised me to give. These are the offerings you are to receive from them: gold, silver, and bronze, blue, purple, and scarlet yarn and fine linen, goat hair, lambskins dyed red, and hides of sea cows, acacia wood, olive oil for the light, spices for the anointing, oil and fragrance incense, and onyx stones and other gems to be mounted on the breastpiece. Then have them make a sanctuary for me, and I will dwell among them. Make this tabernacle and all its furnishings exactly like the pattern I will show you."
So they're going to go to all the people and gather all this stuff up. Okay? And you notice it mentions blue, purple, and scarlet yarn. Those were extremely valuable in those days. In fact, blue was very hard to come by. So when they looked at the Ten Commandments, Nefertiti is wearing this blue outfit, and they said it's highly unlikely because they didn't have a way to make blue in those days. But that's neither here nor there. By the way, the person who played Nefertiti was Ann Baxter. Yesterday on the Heroes channel, they had a Batman episode with her in it as Olga, the head of the Cossacks.
She was in a lot of different things.
Yeah, well, you know, in those days, when they had Batman, all of these great stars wanted to be on it. It was kind of like fun for them. Anyway, so all of these things have been gathered to make what we call, you know, what we will call the sanctuary tent. Now, he hasn't told anyone what these things are going to be used for. Notice it also says acacia wood. Wood was very rare. Remember, all the wood that they had used to come from Lebanon and places like that, because they didn't have any in Palestine that was worth anything. So, and then olive oil for the light, spices for the anointing oil, and fragrant incense. So there's going to be incense going in this thing all constantly. Now remember, they're traveling somewhere, and they have all of these things laying around. Where did all this gold and silver come from? We read it earlier. Yeah, remember when they left Egypt, he said, now talk to the people around you, they'll be happy to give you stuff. Well, that's where it came from. So now here is where the actual ark itself, where the rules are to make the Ark of the Covenant. That starts on verse 10, and I'll read it. Have them make a chest of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high. Overlay it with pure gold, both inside and out, and make a gold molding around it. Remember down the bottom it had like a, well, that's what it says right here. Cast 4 gold rings for it and fasten them to its 4 feet, with 2 rings on one side and 2 rings on the other. And make poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold. Insert the poles into the rings on the sides of the chest to carry it. Remember, there was these long poles that they were carrying it with? Well, that's what these are. The poles are to remain in the rings of this ark. They are not to be removed. Then put in the ark testimony which I give you. Make an atonement cover of pure gold, 2.5 cubits long and 1.5 cubits wide. And make 2 cherubim out of hammered gold at the ends of the cover. Make one cherub on one end and the second cherub on the other. Make the cherubim of one piece with the cover and the 2 ends. The cherubim are to have their wings spread upward, overshadowing the cover with them. The cherubim are to face each other, looking toward the cover. Place the cover on top of the ark and put in the ark testimony which I will give you. There, above the cover, between the 2 cherubim, over the ark of the testimony, I will meet with you and give you all my commands for the Israelites. Remember in the movie, the 2 wings were coming together? Well, that's what the instructions right here were.
They ever found the Ark of the Covenant?
No. Now, there have been people searching for it forever, and there are people who claim that they found it and lost it. We all know that in the Indiana Jones movie, it disappeared.
They lock it up. Did you ever see it?
Yeah.
They lock it up, put it in
some box in some
yeah,
warehouse.
Anything that they find, like, you know, anything that nobody can figure out, they put in this secret place, they put it in a box and put it away.
And then
So if somebody did find it, we'd never know where it is.
And then at the end, you know, as soon as all the lettering was on it, it just disappears. And so they believe that there's some mystical quality about this. Okay, and then in the third, the movie with Sean Connery, they're searching for the Holy Grail, if you will.
Right.
And apparently that has mystical and magical powers, and it cures people of illnesses and all kinds of other things. But they had to leave it behind.
That's like a chalice.
Yeah, it was the cup that Jesus used the wine in on the Last Supper. So they were trying to find the Ark of the Covenant. They were trying to find the Holy Grail.
You see, the Nazis found the Ark of the Covenant. They did bad things for it, you know. You remember how the stuff, the spirits came out?
Yeah.
It's a movie, but I'm just saying that, you know, like, a lot of it's based on this kind of stuff.
So what I'm saying is now if you just read that chapter and look at what supposedly it looked like, now you know where it comes from. So you've got 4 poles, you got the 2 poles, so there's 4 people that carry this thing from place to place. And
And gold makes it heavy.
yeah, gold makes it, it's inlaid on wood,
Yeah.
so they're carrying it from place to place, and the stone tablets are going to be in there, which is not light. And
But they never did really find it, though, for real, all right?
no. Okay. Then it says, here's another piece to it. Make a table of acacia wood, 2 cubits long, 1 cubit wide, and 1.5 cubits high. Overlay it with pure gold and make a gold molding around it. And make around it a rim and a handbreadth wide and put a gold molding on the rim. Make 4 gold rings for the table and fasten them to the 4 corners where the 4 legs are. The rings are to close the rim to hold the poles used in carrying the table. Make the poles of acacia wood, overlay them with gold, and carry the table with them. And make its plates and dishes of pure gold, as well as its pitchers and bowls for the pouring out of offerings. Put the bread of the presence on this table and to be before me at all times. So now you've got this table that they're going to have in there, and it's going to have this official bread on it. Okay, so what is this implying? Now there's got to be a keeper of all of this, right? I mean, this bread isn't, you just don't put it out there and go back 6 months later and see if it's still there. I mean, obviously there's going to have to be somebody responsible for maintaining all this stuff once it's together. And then there's a lampstand going to be in there, and it says, make a lampstand of pure gold and hammer it out, base and shaft. Its flower-like cups, buds, and blossoms shall be one piece with it. 6 branches are to extend from the sides of the lampstand, 3 on one side and 3 on the other. 3 cups shaped like almond flowers with buds and blossoms are to be on one branch, 3 on the next branch, and the same for all 6 branches extending from the lampstand. And on the lampstand there are to be 4 cups shaped like almond flowers with buds and blossoms. 1 bud shall be under the first pair of branches extending from the lampstand, a 2nd bud under the 2nd pair, and a 3rd bud under the 3rd pair, 6 branches in all. The buds and branches are to be of one piece with the lampstand hammered out of pure gold. Then make it 7 lamps and set them up so that they light space in front of it. Its wick trimmers and trays are to be of pure gold. A talent of pure gold is to be used for the lampstand and all the accessories. See that you make them according to the pattern shown you on the mountain. That's what I was just going to ask. How many candles are in the menorah?
7 altogether.
7 altogether. How many on this lampstand? 7 altogether. So this is where the, shall we say, the idea of the menorah comes from. Now again, stop and think about this one thing. There's 600,000 people on the move. Somebody shows up with a whole table full of gold. Who's got the skill to make all this stuff? And what are you going to make it with? I mean, you got to have anvils and all, you know, something to heat it with, and all these other kinds of things. Obviously, they must have had these tools available to them. Okay? If you've ever seen how a forge works, you know that it doesn't have to be real big, but you got to have hammers, and you got to have the fact that you're making all this ornate stuff requires an expert. You know who we're going to find the expert is? Aaron is the expert.
Oh, he's the one?
So,
Since they have all this stuff in there, like anytime they have a service, they take all of this out, like along the road, once the ark is made.
now what they do is they put up the tent somewhere and they put all this stuff in it. Right, so
So it's never open?
no, it's never open. So people have to go in there, and that's what's called the tabernacle. And that's the next section. Listen to what 26 says. Make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of finely twisted linen and blue and purple and scarlet yarn. Now you know what the yarn is for. With cherubim worked into them by a skilled craftsman. All the curtains are to be the same size, 28 cubits long and 4 cubits wide. Join 5 of the curtains together and do the same with the other 5. Make the loops of blue material along the edge of the curtain in one set, and do the same with the end curtain on the other set. Make 50 loops on one curtain and 50 loops on the end curtain of the other set, with the loops opposite each other. Then make 50 gold clasps and use them to fasten the curtains together so that the tabernacle is a unit. Make curtains of gold hair for the tent over the tabernacle. So in other words, the roof is going to be made of goat hair, probably because of repellent water, I guess. All 11 curtains are to be the same size, 30 cubits long and 4 cubits wide. Join 5 of the curtains together in one set and the other 6 in another set. Fold 6 certain double at the front of the tent. Make 50 loops along the edge of each end of the curtain in one set, and also along the edge of the end curtain in the other set. Then make 50 bronze clasps and put them in the loops to fasten the tent together as a unit. As for the additional length of the tent curtains, the half curtain that is left over is to hang over at the rear of the tabernacle. The tent curtains will be a cubit longer on both sides. What is left will hang over the sides of the tabernacle so as to cover it. Make for the tent a covering of ram skins dyed red, and over a covering the hides of sea cows. So in other words, what they do is they put this thing up, and then they put the stuff in it. Okay? So I don't know how often they stop to put it up, but they must have to do that. And then it goes through all the other things you need to, like to make sure the tent stands up and does all of those kinds of things. So basically, that's what this tabernacle was. It was movable. Somebody had to carry all this stuff. I mean, those curtains are pretty doggone big. You're going to have some sort of a cart or some sort of a way to store them. And you have to store them just right, or they get mildewy and whatever else. So once that goes up, then everything else goes inside, and you have your service there. And then in the next chapter, it talks about how you got to make a courtyard on one side, and how you put oil in the lampstand. The lamp has to be going, and all of that sort of thing. Now, the next chapter, we're not going to read it. It says, have Aaron your brother brought to you from among the Israelites along with his sons Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar, so they may serve me as priests. Make sacred garments for your brother Aaron to give him dignity and honor. Remember what we have said all along. All the priests descended from Aaron. This is where that began. And if you really want to read it, there's a whole lot of things in there about what it takes to clothe the priest, including a breastplate that had, remember, all of those diamonds and everything. Well, that breastplate that the priest wears has all of that stuff in it.
How did these people were poor?
Well, remember, they asked the Egyptians to give them all these things. And God said they would. So, yes, these people are poor. Then I'm not going to read chapter 29 because it talks about how you make sacrifices of all kinds of animals to the consecration priest and so on. But what I want to do now is move forward to chapter 32 on page what's the number? Oh, 92. Okay. Verse 18 of chapter 31 says, when the Lord finished speaking to Moses on Mount Sinai, he gave him the 2 tablets of the testimony, the tablets of stone inscribed by the finger of God. So Moses is coming down the mountain, and he's got remember the picture of him showing the 2 tablets and everything like that. By the way, it's not like the history of the world. You ever see the movie The History of the World Part 1? Where Mel Brooks plays Moses, and he says, I have these 3, one of them breaks. I have these 2 tablets.
I seen the commercial.
Yeah, it's a silly movie. I don't know if I'd recommend it or not, but supposedly the way they invented music is they had a bunch of people stand on.
But he's Jewish too.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
They had a bunch of people stand in line, and he'd throw rocks at their feet. And, oh, ooh, ah, ee, oh. Yeah, so that's how they made music. It's a hilarious movie.
Yeah.
It pokes fun and everything.
Oh, yeah.
The funniest scene in it is the Spanish Inquisition, and they got all these Jews in this pool. And they're drowning them, and who's drowning them is bathing beauties.
Oh.
So they're in there with their bathing caps and everything, drowning all these guys. But anyway, I want to go to chapter 32. Now remember, Moses has been up there and he's been given all of these instructions on how to set up, the tabernacle and how to set up the priesthood, and all the sacrifices they have to make and everything. And he's coming down the mountain. Would somebody like to read chapter 32, the first 6 verses?
When the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, they gathered around Aaron and said, come make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what is happening. Aaron answered them, take off the gold earrings that your wives, your sons, and your daughters are wearing, and bring them to me. So all the people took off their earrings and brought them to Aaron. He took what they handed him and made it into an idol cast in the shape of a calf, fashioned it as a tool. Then they said, these are your gods of Israel, who brought you out of Egypt. When Aaron saw this, he built an altar in front of the calf and announced, tomorrow there will be a festival to the Lord. So the next day the people rose early and sacrificed burnt offerings and presented fellowship offerings. Afterwards they sat down to eat and drink and gathered to the Lord.
Just 2 chapters before, what was Aaron supposed to be? What did God tell Moses to do with Aaron?
Then Aaron's supposed to kind of get over the people.
As the what? The sons of Aaron were all, they were all priests. Here's Aaron, the guy that God wants to be the priest. What's he doing? Yeah, he's not only worshiping it, he made the doggone thing.
But if he knew, he was so faithful before, so what made him change? It's like he get in there with Moses and to the mountain and not up there. He did go once.
Yeah, he got it.
So it's like, why would he go along with what the people wanted as opposed to trying to straighten it out.
Exactly. What does that tell you about Aaron?
He's worthless.
Let's put it this way, he's not as strong of faith as everybody thought. And as it turns out, all of the stuff we just read was not in the movie. But this particular scene was. And